Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this one I thought we could have a look at combining anchors with slings and a few different ways of how we do this. Check it out.
First thing we're going to do is actually have a quick chat about slings and a few things that we need to know before we start. The first thing to look at is ensuring each anchor is equalised by the sling. Now, what I mean by this is simply making sure each anchor we are combining with our sling shares the same percentage of load. So for example, if we have two arms, they should be sharing 50% of the load each. Potentially a rather big problem of not equalising them is that one arm could be taking 100% of the load. Now if that anchor failed, it could shock load the next one, pull that one out the rock, and you've ended up in a right old pickle, to put it mildly. The next thing we're going to talk about is angle. When we talk about angles, what we're referring to here is the overall angle of the combined system itself. If we keep the angle below 90 degrees, ideally no greater than 60 degrees, we ensure the anchors are always pulling towards the direction of load. If we make the angle too wide, above 90 degrees, we are no longer pulling the anchors towards where the load will be taken. Instead, we are creating additional load inwards as well as down, which could result in the failure of our anchors. The final thing we're going to talk about is ensuring that each arm works independently of one another. The reason we need to make each arm independent is in case of anchor failure. If the arms aren't independent and one anchor fails, it will result in the whole system coming apart. To stop this from happening, all we have to do is isolate each arm with a suitable knot. This will also aid us in creating a central point to where our loads can be taken. Cool, so let's have a look at combining some anchors. This first method is simply combining two anchors with a 120cm sling using an overhand knot. The top tip is to always keep the sling stitching out of the way of the carabiner and from where you're going to be tying your knot. I personally clip this in first, around 2 centimeters or an inch away from the carabiner. With one hand, pull the sling down towards the direction of where you want it to go, and with the other hand, hold all of the strands and pull them up. Then simply tie an overhand knot around all of the sling strands. Before you actually weight it, just have a quick check that all of the arms are equalised. Now here we have a situation where our anchors are actually slightly wider apart, and our previous method might not be as suitable if we're thinking about our angles. So another method we can do here instead is actually tie an overhand knot into the sling to start with. We can then simply move this up and down the sling to position it into the direction of load. When clipping a carabiner into this system, we must clip it into both sling loops either side of the overhand knot. Otherwise, if one anchor fails, it won't actually be equalised. Another method which gives us just a little bit more sling to work with is actually combining the two anchors with a clove-hitch isolation knot instead. Simply tie a clove-hitch using all of the strands of the sling and pop in a carabiner. So a pretty cool way of tying this is actually to tie it direct onto the sling itself. Take a carabiner, clip it onto the sling first with the gate side pointing away from you. Take your index and middle finger and from the right hand side, twist down and clockwise to make a loop, and twist this over the carabiner and clip it back in. Now here we're going to combine 3 anchors with a 240cm sling. To keep the stitching out of the way this time, I clip this part into the middle carabiner first, then clip the sling either side of this into the other carabiners. To make sure the stitching doesn't move as we equalise this, hold it in place with one hand, then take the other strands in the other hand and pull them down until they meet at the bottom. Work out which direction you want it to go, then simply finish with an overhand knot round all the strands to isolate each arm. Finally, I'm just going to show you one more way of combining 3 anchors but with 2 120cm slings. Start with one sling clipped into 2 anchor points and the other at full length into the other anchor. Tie an overhand knot using all of the sling ends. Then to equalise the loose arm, we can simply just work out where the load is being taken and tie off the excess slack with another overhand knot.
Thanks again for watching. If you enjoy any of our videos, please remember to subscribe to our channel below, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye bye.